When it comes to the different types of editing, I like to keep it simple. I squish them all into three main categories: developmental editing, copy editing, and proofreading. The issue is that definitions vary depending on the editor you're working with, and each main category has several subcategories that narrow in and make things more specific. Finding what you need, especially as a new self-publisher, can be daunting. Here's a tip: most authors only need a copy edit. It provides a great mix of everything you would likely want. Let's talk about developmental editing. Developmental edits are typically for complex books, big budget books, or something a publisher would provide. As a self-publisher, normally you wouldn't need this type of editing, unless you have it in the budget or your book is complex enough to justify it. Developmental edits go by several different names: substantive editing, content editing, structural editing, coaching, and shepherding. They all focus on slightly different aspects, but mean, in general, the same thing. Some developmental edits help lay the foundation of a book, some help spot issues after the book has already been written, and in some situations can involve rewriting. Let's get into copy editing. A copy edit is the most common type of edit. A good copy editor is going to cover things like spelling, grammar, word usage, redundancy removal, caps, dialogue tags and punctuation, tense and inconsistency corrections, clarity, readability, and general improvements. A copy editor is not a writer. They are not a formatter. They do not change voice or content. A good copy editor would leave notes for issues that are outside the scope of a copy edit, like developmental notes. A common term for copy editing is line editing. Typically, a line edit would focus on just word usage and flow, and skip all the other parts in a copy edit. A good copy editor would include the elements of a line edit. Okay, let's go over proofreading now. Proofreading is a final look at your manuscript. It's not a read-through necessarily, but more of a light grammar and punctuation check. It also looks at layout, things like margins, headers, titles, bulleted lists, just anything that would stick out as inconsistent with your manuscript. In today's market, things are a little different. Most editors that say they provide a proofread are referring to a light grammar and punctuation check. Typically, it's a cheap service, but helps if that's all your budget can fit. The margins and headers, all that kind of stuff, fall under formatting. A formatter would skip the light editing and focus on setting your book up for print with a trim size or ebook design. There are some proofreaders that will combine the two services for a low fee, but it's bare bones editing, often involving skimming the content instead of reading it. Today's authors typically hire a copy editor and then a formatter. You want two different people. Someone that's an expert in editing would normally not format, and vice versa. So now the big question: how do you find the perfect editor? That's an easy answer. A professional editor will provide a sample edit of your work. You find editors you think would be great, ask them for a sample edit of the same content, and then you pick the right fit.